Elden Ring is a game full of exploration, excitement, and mystique. There's an insane amount of places you can explore and things you can do. But something I was most interested in was looking at some of the flora and fungi surrounding the hordes of Scarlet Rot and comparing it to real life. Scarlet Rot is something that throughout playing Elden Ring I was wondering how something like this would work in real life with all the fungi that's growing as a result of Scarlet Rot. And do we have visually similar fungi, or did these just exist in a fantasy type aspect? Hello, my name is Caprolux, and I'm going to teach you a few things using Elden Ring. I explored around and looked at some of the fungi we could compare to real life and how those fungi could be used if we had them growing all over the place. So in case you've been avoiding Elden Ring and for some reason this is your first exposure to the affliction labeled Scarlet Rot, here's some background info. Scarlet Rot is a disease born from an ancient outer god. Who is this god? What was their motivation? Who knows? But the important thing is they brought this disease called the Scarlet Rot. Scarlet Rot is a disease that spreads throughout the lands and rots everything it touches. So the goal here is to look at some of the fungi that is found around Scarlet Rot and see how it would pop up in real life. So, to start off, we're going to look at how Scarlet Rot spreads. To make a proper hypothesis about how the Scarlet Rot would act in real life, we'll need to make some observations from in-game as to how the Scarlet Rot works. The best place to start would be how it originated. Let's see here. Okay, Scarlet Rot derived from a vague sealed outer god. Well, that doesn't give a whole lot. Well, let's look at what we can find scattered around the lands between. So one place Scarlet Rot comes from is the Scarlet Aeonia, which comes from Melania, the blade of the proclaimed goddess of Rot. So only Melania, or any of her daughters, sisters, genetic clones? So only Melania or her derivative offshoots can create this Scarlet Aeonia. Okay then, what is the Scarlet Aeonia? I'm gonna be honest, we're gonna be reading into a lot of things when applying science to a video game, so we're gonna be making several assumptions. Generically, it's a great scarlet flower as described by Gowry. And according to the description of the Scarlet Aeonia incantation, it creates a gigantic flower that blooms into an explosion of scarlet rot. Okay, so this gives us some info, but let's first go through some flower anatomy and reproductive biology. In general, to make a flowering plant, you need two similar copies of a plant's chromosomes, also known as the blueprint of life, or DNA. These two copies can actually come from two different plants or from the exact same plant, depending on the species of plant. There are two parts that flowering plants need to create a baby plant with two copies of DNA. These are the stamen and the pistil. Flowers must have at least one of these parts. The stamen produces pollen, which contains one copy of DNA. The pollen arrives at the pistil, which contains the other copy of DNA, in an egg cell. The egg cell and the DNA from the pollen join together to create a cell that now has two copies of DNA. This now leads to a new baby plant being created. Alright, now that we've covered the tip of that iceberg, let's get back to Scarlet Aeonia. So if it is in fact a flower, then Scarlet Aeonia more than likely produces pollen. This pollen could in fact be Scarlet Rot itself, since the blooming of the Scarlet Aeonia creates an explosion of Scarlet Rot. So let's just say for now that Scarlet Rot is Scarlet Aeonia pollen and everybody's allergic. This also can explain how Scarlet Rot spreads across the land, since we don't see any giant bees in Caelid spreading pollen for this specific flower. Thank God, can you imagine a giant bee boss? It's probably safe to assume that the pollen spreads via the wind through a process called anemophily. So with a flower this huge bursting all of its pollen into the air, that would allow Scarlet Rot to spread pretty far throughout the land. So that'd be a possibility of how Scarlet Rot would spread in real life if we had a giant flower that could sustain its own metabolic processes to live in such a quick state. Now as I said before, something that seems to come along with Scarlet Rot is a lot of different fungi in the area. So let's see what we can learn from some of the fungi found here and see how these fungi would actually function in real life. Now fungi can have an extremely wide range of effects due to the biodiversity of organic life, as we can see with the mushroom armor, which provides protective properties to someone with Scarlet Rot, even though Scarlet Rot seems to also produce fungi. But again, what are these fungi and what do they do in real life? I'm going to focus on the ones that I would mainly see around Scarlet Rot infested areas, which are these. And I think they're some of the most interesting ones that you can come across. So the first one I'm going to talk about is this one. This fungus looks very similar to Sarcosypha coccinea or scarlet elf cup. Huh, Pretty on the nose name. It's a mushroom that grows in every continent, except Antarctica, usually in damp wooded areas. This makes sense considering they are most often found in decaying wood. These fungi fall under the division taxonomic classification of Ascomycota. Ascomyces are a fun group of fungi that reproduce via spores. Some species that reproduce sexually and some asexually. So remember that the next time you're riding through the rotten lands of Caelin. Think of all those spores you're inhaling as you're galloping through the area with Torrent and not wearing a respirator. But are they safe to eat? Yeah, as long as you're not feasting on them all the time every day. Too much of anything is bad for you. People describe Scarlet Elfcup as having an earthy flavor and usually pair them with different foods for additional culinary tastes. Now the next fungi that I see quite a bit is this one. So this one's a good one because it has a great name. This is Phyciolina hepatica, also known as beefsteak fungus. This is exactly the kind of fungus you see and you want to give it a good slap, which helps mushrooms release spores and reproduce, so slap your local mushrooms to help them out. This mushroom is named beefsteak fungus because, you guessed it, it looks like a big slab of meat. These mushrooms are usually found in North America, Australia, Northern and Southern Africa, and Europe. These mushrooms are actually parasitic and rely on hardwood trees to live. So kinda weird that you see it on rocky surfaces in Elden Ring most of the time, but whatever. Now what are the effects of consuming said mushroom? Well, not much in terms of effect, but it's a very good meal. Honestly, maybe Scarlet Rot isn't such a bad thing after all. It may deteriorate your brain a bit, but you won't have to worry about starving. It's probably how the Radon soldiers are able to keep fit and fight everything else that pops up as a result from Scarlet Rot. These mushrooms are as meaty as they look and provide a filling feast for anyone that wants to try it and have a savory, acidic, earthy taste. Now, let's talk about that mushroom armor. It's mainly made of two types of mushrooms. The first being Cereoporus squamosus, or the Dryad Saddle. 3 for 3 for great names on these mushrooms. And the second mushroom armor shroom type being a mushroom that I couldn't really identify specifically, but seems to be a type of Mycena. Honestly, with Scarlet Rot, I wouldn't be surprised if it has mutagenic properties that creates a genomically divergent enough Mycena mushroom that it's now a new species. Let's not get into all that. Let's focus on the Dryad Saddle. Now, the Dryad Saddle is another mushroom that grows on wood and causes a white rot to form on the wood it's found on. These mushrooms are found in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, usually growing in the springtime. These mushrooms are also edible and can be used for culinary purposes. They've been described as having a taste like watermelon rinds and a nutty flavor. So, decent, I guess? Now onto the Mycena shroom. This genus is full of mushrooms with long spindly bodies, usually unable to even hold up their own heads. This genus is found all over the world and contains more than 400 different species. Now, can you eat them? Are they good? Will they get you high? Will they kill you? Well, in general, some of them you can eat, some of them kill you, and for a majority of them, we just don't know. Any bite into a Mycena will be a journey into the dangerous unknown, so I don't recommend it. Another fun fact is a handful of Mycena glow in the dark with a glow labeled as Foxfire. It's too bad the mushroom armor itself doesn't glow. Not that you don't already have a glow in the dark slightly, but it'd be cool to go down into a cave with a spooky green glow to light your way. Listen, all I'm saying is you throw some bioluminescence in the game, and I'm already distracted by all the nice pretty colors. There's not too much bioluminescence in media already, and I'll die on that hill. Anyways, now that was just a teeny tiny preview of all the different types of fungi and flora found throughout Elden Ring and how they work in real life. But if I went any further, I would start going down the rabbit holes of the ecological implications of Scarlet Rot suddenly popping up in places, all the effects it has on the fauna in the area, how the Tarnish are affected just being in the area for a limited time, how Scarlet Rot is continually spreading throughout the lands between, not showing any signs of stopping, what it's like to live with fungi actually growing out of you. You get the picture. This just reminds us that science is a continual journey of exploring the unknown and constantly learning how the world works. My name is Caprolux, and I hope you enjoyed this video about mushrooms and Scarlet Ionia in Elden Ring.